You and procrastination have been in a toxic relationship way too long, and it's time we've ended it. Now, I'm not trying to shame you, sis. I've been there, so that's why I'm qualified to give you this advice, and I've also helped plenty of my clients overcome this as well. So, welcome back to the Fire Inside podcast. I am your host, Sade Kelly. I know there's a fire in your heart and ambition in your soul. You know what you want to do and you know what you need to do to make a change, but you haven't yet. And I bet some of y'all watched last week's episode and you still haven't even done the exercise that I gave you. So, that's what we will be tackling today. In this podcast, I talk about all things personal development, leveling up to your higher self, becoming her, whatever her is for you. This podcast is your weekly reminder to stop playing small and start living fully, because whether it's in your career, your wellness, relationships, or your personal goals, we're going to cover strategies and mindset shifts to get you to that successful place you want to be, sis. If you don't know me, like I said, I'm Sade Kelly. I'm a New York City girl through and through, wife, mom, and founder and CEO of Fire Inside. I am a time management coach. So I help ambitious women successfully manage their time so their clients end up achieving their goals 6 times faster and gaining back 28 hours every single week. So make sure to tune in if that's what you're into. Today, I really wanted to tackle procrastination because I know that it is such a difficult thing for all of us to deal with, right? And it is so crazy because studies show that 95% of us procrastinate. Now that is absurd. 95%, like that's almost everyone in this world, they procrastinate. And really, I want you to not think of procrastination as something you can't overcome, because obviously if you're watching this video, you believe you can't overcome it in the first place. And you absolutely can. I like to think of procrastination as a habit. It's a pattern, it's an activity that you tend to do and choose because you've gotten accustomed to it, because you've been doing it for 30 something years, 40 something years, 50 something years, however old you are, amount of years you've been doing it, right? You've just been doing it for so long that it's kind of hard to break the habit. But it doesn't mean you can't break the habit. Think about the habit, so many habits you built, like brushing your teeth, getting dressed every day, heading to work, like all the different things that you do that's become habit. That's how I want you to think about procrastination. It is not a personality trait. It is not something you should be identifying as, right? Because all of those things start to make you shift into a person who tends to procrastinate even more, because it's how you identify. So I'm going to go into all the ins and outs of procrastination, a little backstory of even just me in the first place, right? I used to think that I worked well under pressure. How many of you think the same? Actually, why don't you go and subscribe if you've thought the same? That'll, speed my subscribers real quick. But nah, for real, I used to really think that I worked well under pressure. Oh, I like to do things at the last minute because if I work well under the wire. And I realized that it wasn't that I worked well under pressure. It was actually that I was so nervous about things not being perfect, right? Like I had this false sense of confidence to others, but really internally, the confidence wasn't there, right? Like, tell me you have felt that before, where it's like people may think you're the go-to person. They think you're super confident, you know what you're doing, but inside you are like really scared. You don't know what you're doing and you're afraid you're going to get found out, right? You almost feel like an imposter, and that makes you procrastinate. That makes you feel all this fear, and it makes you hold back. So you don't get things done right up until when it's due, right? Like I used to be the one that the papers due at 11:59, and I would start it at like 6 p.m. Like I would have a full day of classes. I would go eat in the dining hall, hang out with my friends, and then go at 6 o'clock. Oh, maybe I should try to start this paper. And it's like, girl, that thing is due and you have to pull an all-nighter, but it is what it is. And I say all that to say that I really understand what it looks like to really believe that you are a procrastinator, that you just are someone who will avoid until you absolutely have to do something. And I want you to know that you can break that. I've broken it. I've had clients who've broken it. Like I had a client, she was a huge procrastinator. She was like, listen, I haven't gotten to my goals in 3 years. I don't know if this is going to work or not. When we started working together in my program called Overwhelmed to Organize. And girl, we got her to getting her goals done in 90 days that she'd been putting off for 3 years. So it really is just coming down to a couple different things. And I'm going to share those things in this podcast today. And the first thing I want you to realize is that your brain's default emotional response is to avoid tasks that, right? It's because our brains want to protect us from discomfort. Our brains want to protect us from pain. So if you give into that feeling every single time, it's natural, right? It's kind of challenging to actually push past it. So I want you to first acknowledge that. Like, if you're overcoming procrastination every day, you're doing a damn good job. Okay, girl, clap for yourself, all right? Because it is hard. Our brains are wired for comfort, and we have to push past it in order to do things that make us uncomfortable. But once you've done it enough, you start to get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is like an amazing thing in itself. And maybe that should be a whole episode. Let me know in the comments if you think that. But that is really important to acknowledge, because a lot of our procrastination habits and our tendencies come from our minds, right? A lot of things come from our minds in the first place, but the way to get out of procrastination is first by understanding the procrastination loop, right? So typically there are a lot of beliefs in our mind, right? There's a lot of beliefs that we've grown up around. There's our whole subconscious is formed in the first 7 years of our life. And that's why I'm like so laser focused on making sure my son has the best 7 years, the first 7 years of his life that I can guarantee him, because I want his subconscious to be built up better than mine was. And no shade to like who raised me, but like it is what it is. Like, you know, we're all gonna have issues, but whatever. I say that all to say the subconscious is so important, right? Because there's a lot of subconscious beliefs that's holding us back. And for many people, when it comes to you being a procrastinator and not following through, you probably have some belief around you not being good at consistency, that you work well under pressure, that you're good under the wire, right? That you do well at procrastinating or waiting on things, right? You have some belief that somehow has always worked out for you, so you don't see a reason to make a change, right? So that belief is ultimately holding you back, because what happens is our beliefs now funnel into our behavior, and it creates this loop, right? Beliefs affect our behavior, so it affects what we do. Therefore, even though you know you want to make a change, sometimes you don't actually do it because you believe you're a procrastinator anyway. So it's like your beliefs are driving your behavior, and then your results are what? The self-fulfilling prophecy of not getting things done until you absolutely have to, because you're just so used to believing that it's going to get done anyway in the environment that it's gotten done. So in order to break this cycle of your beliefs affecting your behaviors, which then affects your results, is you have to first attack your beliefs. You have to stop identifying as a procrastinator. You have to realize that it's just a habit, just like brushing your teeth. And you need to start realizing that you can break that habit by first working on your mindset. How can you get better at dealing with discomfort? How can you get better at getting outside of your comfort zone? How can you get better at doing things earlier? Maybe you start to set earlier deadlines for yourself. Like if you know you like to work under pressure, maybe you create a false sense of pressure. Now that is initially how I broke out of this procrastination loop, was that first I need to work on how I was identifying. I no longer called myself a procrastinator. I just said, okay, in the past, I have waited till the last minute to do things. I've thought that I've worked well under pressure, but instead I actually don't work that well under pressure. I'm actually stressed. I actually have a lot of fear around my capabilities, and I'm lacking some self-belief. And if I can work on those things and my self-love, then I can get better at doing things ahead of time. So working on those beliefs then started to change my behavior. And I started to realize, oh, you need to stop identifying as this girl who's perfect, that comes across as perfect, that you have to be perfect in order to be good enough or to be smart enough or whatever enough, you think you need to be. And instead I started thinking, okay, I'm a progressionist. I'm someone who values progress. I value the process. I value doing well on things, right? I value gradually progressing and evolving over time and not stressing myself out to be 100% because no one's perfect. And it's so crazy how we always say no one's perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And then we sit here and we strive to be perfect. Make it make sense, because it just doesn't make sense, right? So if you're working on your beliefs and you start identifying as a progressionist and you start realizing that, okay, I don't need to keep working like this anymore. I can start to change my beliefs, which will then start to affect my behavior, and then I will start to get different results, right? So that is like one of the biggest takeaways if you take anything away from this podcast. work on those beliefs around procrastination. Now, if you're not sure why you're procrastinating, there's a couple of different reasons why. One of them is, like I mentioned, perfectionism. You may be thinking that it's better to delay something because you might not do it perfect, that you need all the time to get it done, and you need to be looking at it and read it 30, 50 million times before you press submit. I used to be like that until I started giving myself boundaries. You may have a fear, right? You may be avoiding the task because it's overwhelming, or you think it's out of your ability, or you're fearing judgment or rejection, which really, judgment and rejection just lead you to where you need to be, right? I've had to rewire myself when it comes to rejection because it can be so hard, especially when you're a business owner and people will sit here dead in your face and lie to you and be like, yeah, I want to join. I need help with that. And then sit here and tell you no, or not join, or not do whatever, right? Like, it's just a part of entrepreneurship. And I realized that everything that's for me will come into my life. So when I'm getting rejected, it's just me being redirected, right? So I want you to start realizing, okay, was it perfectionism? Was it fear? Was it a lack of clarity? Maybe I just don't have a plan. Maybe I just don't know what the plan should be and how to actually articulate it on this. I don't know how to start, or I don't know how to follow through. Or maybe you're overwhelmed by how much you have going on, and that in which case you probably need time management help. Hi, hello, I can help you there. Or maybe it's just a lack of interest. It's something you don't want to be doing. It's something that you've been forced to do that you maybe need to delegate to somebody else. Or maybe you're just not motivated and you need to learn how to ignite the fire inside yourself. So you need to head to episode 1. But whatever it is, I want you to start figuring out what is the thing that's causing me to procrastinate, and then in what areas am I procrastinating, right? Because we're not procrastinating in all areas of your life. And I always tell clients this. It's like they'll sit here and be like, oh, I am not disciplined. And I'm like, girl, you are disciplined. You show up to the calls every week. You show up to work every week. You show up for your friends and family every week. But why you ain't showing up for you? Why you're not showing up at the gym, right? Like, there's usually some areas of your life where you are killing it and you don't procrastinate. Because I bet you if that man you like call you talking about he's going to take you to your favorite restaurant, you know how to get dressed real quick, throw on a face and be outside, right? But when it comes to other things, we don't know how to do that. So I want you to think about, okay, what are the places where I'm procrastinating and why, and where is it coming from? Where is it stemming from? I always, recommend getting a coach or a therapist to help you through those things to kind of understand it deeply, because once you've understood it deeply, then you can start to take different actions. Now, when it comes to taking action, I want you to always think about starting, right? How can you start and make it super easy? Because sometimes starting is really hard for people. And now one thing I like to trick my brain into is like, let me just take one small step or one small action. Let me just do this thing for 5 minutes, right? Set a timer, do it for 5 minutes. And what you realize is once you've gotten into the groove of you started, you tend to do it a bit longer. So sometimes if you find yourself procrastinating, just like get right into it. And I think a lot of this also comes down to the 5-second rule, which I love Mel Robbins. I feel like I've now referenced her in both episodes, but clearly I like her a lot and I love her podcast. Shout out to you, Mel Robbins. If this ever gets big and you want me as a guest, I'm here, ready. One thing she talks about is the 5-second rule. And it's like one way she got herself out of procrastinating was she would count down. Like anytime she felt herself like lollygagging, she would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then she would like launch like a rocket and just like do whatever it is she had to do. And I do that in my everyday life, like all the time. I don't always count down, but I tell myself like just go, and then I just start and I just take the action. It's like when I'm about to film this podcast, I was like, oh, should I go eat? Should I go do something else? Then I was like, girl, just press record. And now I'm here, I'm talking to you. I've been on this for probably 20 minutes or so. Just get started. Like set the timer and just do it, because sometimes we're overthinking ourselves out of doing anything. And if you're an overthinker, that tells me you need to just act, because you learn more and you gain more from just acting than you do playing out scenarios in your head. So start to take that small action. But start to realize that if you don't know how to take that small action on your own, find an accountability partner, right? Whether it's a friend, a family, there's so many other different ways that you can find accountability. I know there's a lot of different resources online like Focus Mate and Cave Day. And me personally, I have an accountability membership. It's called the Goal Get Hers group. If you're interested in that, head to the description box where I'll share more details on that. I love my accountability group because not only does it hold me accountable, but it holds other women in the group accountable to our goals. And it's a group of people we get to lean on and have support in, which people don't always have in their everyday life. So if you are looking for that, join something like that so you can start to be more consistent. In my accountability group, we're planning with each other every single week. We're checking on our goals every single week. We're having coaching sessions bi-weekly. Like, we're really holding each other down, so that way at the end of the year we can sit here and say, oh, we killed it with our goals. We have a plan for our goals. We're getting into where we want to get. We're developing the habits. We know the process. We're working through the frustrations. We're working on our mindset. We're working on our discipline. We're really becoming her, like our highest self. So finding accountability can be really important. And then also, one thing I see people do when it comes to procrastination is they find other things to do that feel productive. And I call this productive procrastination, where if you know you need to work on like a PowerPoint because you're giving a speech, or you need to work on like some work project, but then you realize, oh yeah, well, I also need to order vitamins. I haven't done that in a minute. Or I need to clean up my house, or the dishwasher, it needs to be unloaded. Like, you start to let your brain kind of allow you to do other things that feel productive but that are super easy. Now, for some people, it's great to do that easy thing first to kind of clear their mind and then get into the hard thing. But if you're doing that again and again and again because you're avoiding the hard thing, I urge you to eat the frog, right? And what that is, I think that's Brian Tracy. I'm pretty sure that is him. But he talks about eat the frog, which is basically do the hardest thing first, because you're going to feel so rewarded. You're going to feel so great after you do the hard thing that the other things will become way easier. And you'll train yourself to start rewarding and like really bigging up yourself, being more proud when you take the hard action. And then ultimately to that, set up those consequences. Like when you don't do the thing you say you're going to do, how are you going to, kind of reprehend yourself? Like, one thing that helped me to grow my side hustle when my side hustle journey, I started 3 side hustles while I was working corporate full time, which is like absurd to even say. But the reason I got myself to actually find one that sticks and makes me genuine money, like enough where I could leave my job, was because I told myself, okay, every day after work, you need to come home and you need to spend at least 30 minutes, whether it was on the train, because I was living in New York City at the time, so I had a pretty long commute, or if it was when I went home, I had to make sure, no matter if I went to the gym or whatever I did after work, even if I went to happy hour after work, I made sure that I spent 30 minutes every single day on my side business, because I knew I wanted to grow that, because I wanted that to be my full time. I also wanted to make sure I had multiple revenue streams, right? I was really, really focused on wealth because I know how important wealth is, right? So the reason I got really good at it is because I set up rewards. When I would go home and do the 30 minutes of whatever the task was for the business, I would reward myself with watching my favorite show, hanging out with friends, talking on the phone, maybe doing something that I just enjoyed, or ordering something online that I wanted, right? But I had to reward myself based on the hard thing that I did. And then if I didn't do the thing, I had to set up consequences. Maybe I made myself go to bed, or maybe I couldn't go out this weekend because I needed to make up that hour and a half or 2 hours that I didn't put in this week. Like, I really had to set up those consequences to remind me, okay, when I don't do the things I say I'm going to do, there's consequences. There's things that come with it. Even though I'm an adult, I had to treat myself almost like a kid, right? Like, I had to train myself to start changing my behaviors, because if I wanted change in my life, I knew I needed to put in the work in order to not have to do the work long term, right? Sometimes you need a short sprint of your head down so you can get to the place where your head is up and your life is a little bit more free. So I hope that these tips were super helpful for you when it comes to breaking up that toxic relationship with procrastination and becoming more productive. As your action item, which I give every single podcast episode, I want you to journal the beliefs that are holding you back. So when you think about where you're procrastinating, I want you to write out, like literally write it out, because there's something so magical about you writing it down that makes it stick, and it feels like you either releasing things or you're remembering things better. So go ahead and write it out. Like, what are the things in areas in which I'm procrastinating? Where are the areas where I'm not doing it at all? And like, what are the beliefs that are holding me back when it comes to why I'm procrastinating? And then when you're looking at those beliefs, I'm sure solutions will start to come to you, right? And if you ever need help with that, you can hit me up on Instagram or in the comments section. I would love to talk with you and hear more about it. But I want you to really start to learn how to adapt and overcome each of those beliefs that are holding you back, because I promise you 80% of your success is your mindset. 20% is strategy, and strategy is super, super important, but 80% is your mindset. And if you have not been working on your mind, honey, you need to start doing that, especially if you want to break up with procrastination. If you enjoyed this episode as I enjoyed making it, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to know what you think. And if you're ready to take your time and your goals to the next level, check out the links in the show notes where I show you how to connect with me and how you can learn more about working with me at The Fire Inside. All right, you guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.